Oh, yeah, you guys. Week 8, Saints versus Bears. We've got Adam Rank, we've got Marc Sessler, and I'm Ricky Hollywood. And let's kick this thing off. I'm so excited. How are you guys doing?
Thrilled to be here, Ricky Hollywood.
Nice, nice. Are you excited, Rank? It's your Bears.
Yeah, let's go, Rank.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not happy with the way that this simulation has been going for the Bears, but I'm feeling confident in what's going to happen in this game.
And Marc
I've learned
Sessler,
a lot
diehard Saints fans.
Well, I would say that Rank has been texting Erica and I daily as the simulation has been dropping one L on the Bears after the next. He expected them to be 7-1 at this point. That's not how it's gone at all.
Do you have anything
I should
to say?
point out that my predictions for the coming season are dropping soon. I did not have them at 7-1 at this point, though.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like all of a sudden the Saints are gonna just do something crazy, like a big Emmanuel Sanders touchdown to really just sink it in right in this first quarter. How about you guys? Any big bold predictions?
Yeah, you've been scouting Sanders in this simulation really on a thorough kind of week-to-week basis, and he's been a big part of their offense. So I think that's a very solid prognostication, Ricky.
Yeah. How do you guys see this game ending up? Rank, let's start with you. Who's your pick?
Well, my unbiased opinion would be the Bears. Although, when I did the predictions for the coming season, I did have the Bears losing this one. Last year, the Bears played host to the Saints after the bye week. Disappointingly lost to Teddy Bridgewater, so I think this would be one of their toughest games of the season.
Sessler, how about you?
Well, I'm really confused what the Chicago Bears are in this virtual world that we're strolling through week by week. I mean, you've got Nick Foles doing nothing other than holding for field goals and extra points. That's not why they brought him in. Trubisky hasn't been ultra special or anything. But I'm going Saints because, I mean, if the Saints lose here and they fall to, 4-3 or so, I'd be real concerned about that.
Cool, yeah, we've already got some comments coming in. One question is, Rank, why are you still a Bears fan?
Why wouldn't I be? I'm not going to bail on the team just because this simulation is not going well. I honestly believe they're going to be a lot better this year. I'm a big believer in Nick Foles. I think the defense is going to be a lot better, but having Bobby Quinn there opposite of Khalil Mack instead of Leonard Floyd should be huge. Akeem Hicks is healthy. They got a better safety to go with Eddie Jackson. I'm stoked for this season, this simulation notwithstanding.
Okay, cool. Sessler, we have a comment that says that you're the GOAT. I don't necessarily agree with that, but comment.
Well, I have a few family members watching this, and that I've kind of given them some advice on how to get the conversation flowing in the chat room.
Nice. Nice.
I would agree. Like if I had to rank the around the NFL crew, and Ricky Hollywood notwithstanding, because I still think of her as Fantasy League One. But if I had to rank those four dudes, I think Sessler easily for me takes the #1 spot.
Yeah.
Well, no
Sessler,
comment
how about
to
you?
that.
How about you rank all four of the ATN guys?
So I would go Sessler #1. Oh wait, you're doing it with Sessler? Okay, he can go.
Well, I mean, this is an impossible question. Those guys are luminaries to me, and I'm really just lucky to even be sort of in the same workroom with them. But you got to go Dan, otherwise I'm going to be hearing about it for a real long time.
Okay. What about the rest? You gotta do it.
Dan, Ricky, then the rest. I mean, I'm like, who's going to cause me the least? Greg will never be watching this, so it doesn't matter what I say.
And Wes you guys just see? Sorry to cut you off. Did you just see this touchdown?
God. You called it, Ricky.
Like, that is why I get paid to do this. Is because I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you've been looking at that tape, and while Rank and I get out of these games and we're like, quick, let's go hit the bar, and Ricky's like, I need to look at that simulation for a second and third time, and it's paying off.
Yeah, right as the quarter's ticking down. I mean, who called it? I mean, NFL, take note.
Ricky Hollywood.
Right?
Yeah, slot corner could be a problem for the Bears this year. So perhaps you're onto something. Way to study the tape.
Thank you. So where do the Bears fall this season? Like, where do you guys, they haven't been off to a super great start. Rank, do you think they're able to turn it around, or is this, written in stone?
If this was what is happening, I would find it hard to believe that Mitch Trubisky would still be the quarterback, but I understand what's going on with the simulation and everything like that. I'm more optimistic. I'm realistic, but I'm optimistic about this team. So I really do believe the biggest key for me, though, is the defense being much better. And I think that's going to be what helps them. And even as bad as everything was last year, and it was terrible, and there were some awful moments, they were still 8-8 in a division with two teams that made the playoffs. So I'm not completely ready to write them off just yet.
Yeah. Let's go to the question board. We've got Epsilon version 2, V2. So something happened with V1, and we're not going to get into that because I don't know the answer, but that's something to notice. So V2 asks, how does Mark and Ricky put up with everyone on the podcast? Rank, you just sit tight for a second, and we'll take this one.
I mean, I would say that if anything, that I'm probably more of a nuisance than anyone else, and tend to be in worse moods than the rest of the crew. So, it's attached to my weekly paycheck. So putting up with anything work related is just part of the function of being an adult who has a lot of responsibilities and bills to pay.
Definitely. I have to agree. Yeah, it's just, unfortunately, this is my job, and I got to grind. I got to put the head down and do my work and just work for the weekend, That's how you got to figure it out.
Honorable work.
Dan seems like he's a handful. That would be a lot. That's a big presence right there that you have to deal with.
Well, I mean, but a blessed handful. I mean, you can't, there's the mirror side to all things, and the handful the part of it that we enjoy it's delectable, and I don't even know what I'm saying at this point.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit of fantasy. So Adam Rank, you are the NFL's leading fantasy guru, right? But as we said on ATN podcast, Marc Sessler has a fantasy corner, and once a season he gives his deep dive and he really goes into that. So first of all, before we sort of get into some fantasy perspective of this upcoming season, how do you feel with that conflicting sort of, I guess, friendly coworker fire? How are you handling the heat?
Oh, there's no heat. I think that we all defer to Marc Sessler in the fantasy corner as the end-all, be-all of all fantasy information that stems from the NFL Media Group, and I have no problem seeing that. It's kind of like, if you're the backup to Tom Brady, you're like, yes, this is the greatest quarterback who ever played. I will sit here and back him up, and it's cool. And you go out, and when called upon, when people need me to go out there and give fantasy information, I will certainly do that. But I understand that everybody is deferring to the fantasy corner, as they should, and it's up to Marcus, Grant, and I to kind of pick up the pieces after that. So and I think that's just the way it should be. And that's, I can read a depth chart, I know how it goes, and so it's no problem to me at all.
This is
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Erica. Well, I was going to say, this is like one of those movies where, you think that you're in a good position. You're taken deep into the country in a sedan, a black sedan with 3 or 4 other people that you thought were your friends, and then the car returns to its origin, and you aren't in the car. You've been left out in the field, and so I feel like that kind of overpraise is dangerous, and I'm going to monitor it.
Yeah. So, is there anyone on this Bears team that you would take on a fantasy squad? Just anyone at all?
Yeah, Allen Robinson had a really good season last year. To me, one of the top 5. I know that Ryan Clark on ESPN does not feel that Allen Robinson's a number 1 receiver in the league. I don't know that there are 31 receivers in the league better, let alone 5. So, obviously, especially if Nick Foles comes in and plays quarterback this season, we're going to probably see Allen Robinson's best year. This would easily be the best quarterback that he's ever played with. When you think about it, he's played with Trubisky, he's played with Blake Bortles, and he's still gone out there and crushed it. So I have Allen Robinson very high on my fantasy big board. I've got David Montgomery there as somebody that I'm going to go and look at in the middle to late rounds. Last year, I thought he was going to be a lot better. It didn't quite work out fantasy-wise, but if they can fix some of the stuff on the offensive line, I think the big switch was putting Cody Whitehair back. And at the end of the season, when Cody Whitehair was playing center, the offensive line was playing a lot better. So if they can get production from the offensive line, I think that David Montgomery can end up being pretty good too.
I'd say this, Erica. Keep an eye on left guard James Daniels in deep dynasty leagues. That's a big pickup.
Nice, thanks. I'll take that into consideration. I hope our viewers are taking notes as well. So we've got a couple questions here. What do you guys all have behind you? Ricky, is that an air mattress? No, that's just my curtains, and I'm just trying to block the sun.
What is that?
Yeah, it's just blinds. So that's my answer. How about you, Mark?
I have what is essentially, and this has become kind of chic in the Corona time era, a totally phony setup. This looks like it might be a place I'd hang out and do a lot of work. It's about 3 feet by 3 feet with some books propped up on a bench, and literally a gigantic comforter stuffed between that and a bookshelf, so that the book between that and a closet type thing, so that the bookshelf during the show doesn't just tumble over and crush my right leg.
You're using a comforter to prop up a bookshelf?
It's a very concerned. I could actually try to show you if you'd like to see.
I want to see it.
It's that's actually where I keep my clothes, some of my clothes, and then that's just a fake setup with a big white.
You just like shoved
comforter.
it in there.
Right, because it was when I sit on this, the bookshelf was shaking, and I knew that would lead to disaster. So a very false background.
Nice. How about you, Adam?
Well, the wife, Rosie McGee, actually put a lot of effort into this workspace that we got. This is my actual workspace that I use. Everything is used. There's a hat rack right here with some Bears hats going on. I got there's a Funko Pop up here, Nakamura. I got my Shohei Ohtani bobblehead with some the Beastie Boys book. That's Paul's Boutique. That's the album up there. If I put that back, that's an album. Got some vinyl going.
Nice.
So there's some thought that's going in. And actually now, because we're doing all this stuff from home now, and now I've gotten the addiction of buying Funko Pops. I can't stop it. And similar to Mark, where I'm up late, watching Twitch or doing whatever. Now I'm like, oh look, Tony Hawk Bob or Funko Pops. Yep, I'll buy that. What am I doing? I'm an adult male.
What?
Now I'm good. I know I can't stop it. I try to buy some under the guise that it's for my kids, and then I take it. Like this Nakamura one was for my daughter because she's a wrestling fan. She's 4. She likes wrestling. She liked Nakamura. I think she liked his music. So I gave her a Funko Pop, and then I had to negotiate with her to put this on my. I'm like, hey, can I put that up on my set here? And she said no for 3 days until I offered her $1,000, and then she still said no. She turned it down.
Wow.
She wanted to watch the Scoob movie on Friday night. That was I'm like, that you could have bought the Scoob movie 89 times for the thousands of dollars I was giving you. But whatever. She's not a great negotiator, but she got to see the movie, and I got the Nakamura Funko Pop.
There you go. So we got a question here from Zach. Adam Rank, who do you think will be the biggest bust in fantasy this year?
Ooh. Well, as a Chicago fan, this should be the surprise to no one, but Aaron Jones is somebody who I'm probably not going to be drafting. Last year I got him in the 3rd round, and he was great, but I don't believe that he's going to have 19 touchdowns this season. I think there's going to be immense regression in that regard, and they also signed or drafted A.J. Dillon in the 3rd round, which means they probably want him to come in and be a little bit of a plotter. I think that Matt LaFleur, what we're going to see out of this Packers offense this coming season, he wants it to look like what the Titans have been doing over the last couple of years. And I believe that Dillon would fill a bigger role in that offense. I mean, already Aaron Jones is just getting 50% of the snaps. That's probably going to get cut, not completely, but down to 40%. I can't trust somebody that is that touchdown dependent. And so I know all the Packer fans want to come out and they want to roast me for that. But you know what? I'm drafting another. You know what? Draft Josh Jacobs instead. He will be this year's Aaron Jones. So make sure you're picking him.
I agree. How about you, Sess?
I like that. Well, I'd have to go Nick Foles. I mean, here we are 7+ games into the season, and he's not playing. So there's going to be a wide flock of jabronis that drafted Nick Foles, and then according to what this future computer, you're sitting on that pick, and that's burning your butt up.
It is. Yeah, this is a great one from N-7. Who's the best QB in the AFC East? That's It's hard to see because we don't know how, Tua's going to play. Josh Allen is
If he's
still a
gonna
work
play,
in
yeah.
progress. Josh Darnold, Sam Darnold, Josh Darnold. I was like, I think Josh Darnold would probably be a bigger, sort of beefier quarterback.
If
for
you
the
combine
Jets.
Josh Allen and Sam Darnold together, you might have something there.
Exactly.
That's a
So
pretty
that might
good
be
quarterback right now.
I think so, yeah, but I'm going to have to go ahead and say Jared Stidham is definitely the best quarterback in the AFC.
Come on, Ricky.
Stop it. Come on.
Who do you guys think?
How about a promising year for Sam Darnold? Because if it doesn't happen, there's big issues with the Jets in general. I really think that we haven't really seen Sam Darnold in a scenario where he's been able to thrive at all, and I don't know if they have the right coaching staff for that. I do think that people are kind of groupthink down on Josh Allen, though, and there are a couple quarters and halves last year where he looked to me just sensational, but there is the side where he could also throw the ball 20 yards off target and hit like a female scoring table assistant right in the head. So you've got to be careful with him at times.
Got to watch out for
that's so true. But it is with Sam Darnold, like the whole thing comes down to Adam Gase, and everybody.
Right.
I know that Adam Gase is one of the most widely, for whatever reason, he keeps getting jobs and all this stuff. Like, he worked with Peyton Manning and had great success with him, and he had great success with Jay Cutler. So here's a guy whose claim to fame is working with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time and Peyton Manning, and he goes out there and does well. Like, of course he's going to. So until we see something where he's actually produced, until he gets Sam, because I think Sam is talented and is ready to go. And I think that perhaps the next coach of the Jets will get the most out of him. But right now, as it stands, I'd probably say Josh Allen's the best. Because I'm with Mark. Like, I feel that people hate on Josh Allen for the weirdest reason. Like, he's a good quarterback. He was in the playoffs last year. I know that play against the Texans was awful. But outside of that, that guy is a good quarterback. And once he gets more experience, he's going to end up being a top-end guy.
Well, we're also in this period where, like, if quarterbacks don't shine by year two, like, we're done with them. It's too bad you're out just because a couple have done that. But think about how football used to be. I mean, a guy like Joe Theismann, like, basically didn't really even start consistently for 3 or 4 or 5 years into his campaign. Phil Simms went through all that. I mean, I know it's a totally different era, but some of these guys deserve a little more patience. Not everyone can be Patrick Mahomes.
You might be wondering why I'm holding my puppy Thor right now, but there is a reason, because XX minor to major XX asks, do any of you have pets, and if so, can you show them Belichick style? This is Thor, and he doesn't like the Bears or the Saints. Right, buddy?
Aw, that's mean.
How about you guys? Are you guys
Frank?
weirdos that don't have pets?
I have children, so I don't have pets.
Right. Yeah, it feels like a cop-out, but my children are small, and they've asked many times for a dog, and I don't want to be that classic sort of bad, unlikable dad figure, so I've kind of pushed it off into the future. But adding an animal or any more creature that just sort of essentially needs things all day long is the wrong equation here in the household.
Yeah, I think you are a terrible father. I think a dog would only bring something that your children could focus on, especially right now, where there is a lot of time in the house, and this is the time to potty train and to just have snuggles and love. And you're up late watching Twitch, Mark. It's just, you might be missing something.
Yeah, maybe it's what's missing
that's
in my
what I
heart. I would just say if there's going to be 4 people, living beings in the house, and one of them's a dog, Daddy will be living somewhere else, likely. That's a hard line.
Go ahead, Ray.
No, I was going to say there's enough neighbors around here that have dogs that I can the kids can go out, or they used to be able to go out and love up on those dogs. And you go inside, you're like, you don't have to clean up after them. This is the best of both worlds. Go out, throw the ball around for a little bit, then you're like, all right, see you guys later. Enjoy it. So I see so many like squabbles with people with dogs too. Like, it causes too much drama. Like, my kids are already like, I don't want to say ruthless, or they've got a bad reputation in the neighborhood, but listen, they're kids of mine, so obviously they're not the most well-behaved. So anytime, like, anything that goes wrong in the neighborhood, and there's like a community Facebook, group that's like, oh, I don't know if you guys. I'm like, it wasn't my kid. We weren't even here. But,
It probably was your kids, first of all.
Probably. I'm sure it was. I'm just covering for her because I know damn well it was her.
Yeah, there was a fire in downtown LA, and I'm not unconvinced that my children weren't part of that potential criminal case. They are, in their own right, ruffians at this point and need to be monitored, not to be given small animals as gifts.
Well, before we go to there's a few more questions in the chat going on. Rank, the Saints are leading 14-0 right now. Are you feeling okay? You feeling confident? You feeling nervous?
Oh, I'm definitely feeling nervous. But you know what? Mitch is his most clutch when they're behind the 8-ball. So
I'm
feeling pretty good about this.
Yeah, right.
Of course.
Right, as
Perfect timing
he
for
slammed to the turf.
Yeah, so let's see. Zach XOXO asked Adam, how long do you think it will take Clyde Edwards-Helaire to overtake Damian Williams in the backfield?
Probably not long. I think that this was a perfect situation. I know for a lot of the fantasy enthusiasts, we weren't necessarily thinking that the Chiefs were going to go with the running back. But if you can bring in a player like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we saw him in the national championship game be excellent. So I think that's a perfect opportunity for him. I do believe that Andy Reid always wants to lean on running backs or one running back. I don't think that he would want to have a running back by committee. So hopefully he can get in there, learn the playbook relatively quick. I know it's going to be a little bit tougher than most years because of what's going on in the world. But, he's coming from a pro-ready offense. Playing with Joe Brady, who is currently an NFL as offensive coordinator, should help him in terms of terminology and things like that. So I don't think it's going to take him long to get up to speed. And I think at some point during the season, he's going to end up being a fantasy stud. So, yeah, if you're thinking about drafting him in your fantasy league, definitely do that.
Well, what happens to Damian Williams then?
Well, he sits on the bench. It's good. He'll come in. He'll sit around. But, you don't draft this guy just to not play him. And I know that's kind of a cop-out. But I do believe that they wanted to have somebody, not that Damian Williams isn't dynamic. He played well in the Super Bowl and everything like that. But I think that when you get an exceptional talent like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the story that we heard was that one of the guys in the scouting department told Andy Reid, you got to watch this guy. He reminds me of Brian Westbrook. And then Andy Reid went out and watched the tape, and he's like, no. He's better than Brian Westbrook. So when you hear things like that, I don't think that it's hyperbole. I don't think that there was any reason for Andy Reid to come out and say that unless he really believes it. So I'm in. I'm in on Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
There's a lot of fire in the chat right now saying that Damian Williams should have been the Super Bowl MVP and they're a 49ers fan, or he was 1 yard away from winning the Super Bowl MVP and now he's just an afterthought. Defend yourself.
How many teams have one running back? There's only that's an atypical and an unrewarding situation for both. Having both of them, I think the Chiefs, number one. When you have one of these deals where Reid has been coaching this scheme and growing it year after year, they know exactly what kind of running back they want. They weren't just saying we're filling a need. They found the right guy, and I think it's a good match for them. And he'd be someone fantasy-wise that he could explode. Here's also where I note that Mitch Trubisky in this game, because I'm actually still analyzing the game action here, threw for 50 yards in the first half. So I can clearly see why they're sticking with him. Why would you not want that?
So when the season comes, when do you think they'll actually switch to Nick Foles? Do you think by
How about
week
before the season?
3? Yeah.
How about preseason week 3? I don't know why you bring Nick Foles into town because they can give us this pretty song and dance about Mitch Trubisky all they want, but at this point I think it's pretty clear they didn't pick up his option. You're paying a lot of money to Nick Foles, who I'm not convinced is a great starter either. Rank, you can give me what you think he'll do, but wouldn't it be an upset if Mitch Trubisky was the week 1 starter after what they've done?
It would be. That's for sure. I do kind of believe that he's going to be. Listen, the perfect thing for Foles is to let somebody else go out there and start for a couple of games, then you bring in Foles out of the bullpen and let him do his thing.
Well, it didn't work with Gardner Minshew.
No, that did not. Well, no, because Foles was the week 1 starter, so that was
no,
that's
I know,
where
but
the whole thing.
Well, no, but the problem is you let someone else in, and then they capture the heart of the entire part of northern Florida, and suddenly Nick Foles comes in and looks like he's got like 6 pounds of cement in each shoe, and it's he played himself out of a job, kind of.
I take my job very seriously.
Thank you, Erica.
Gardner played really well, though. Yeah. Thank you.
I was just gonna say that, like, I'm employed by the NFL. I study the tape, like you say, and I really take my analysis very seriously. And as you just saw with that Trubisky fumble, he's bad.
Listen, we're not going to sit here and drag Mitch Trubisky all day, all right? It's fine, okay? Listen, the thing is, I have a very specific prediction on this. You can check it out when my predictions drop on YouTube. Maybe this week, maybe next week, but it'll be here soon as I continue to tease that. But it's going to be, it seems weird. Like, you talked about the thing with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and like you drafted a player because he fits your system. The Bears could have brought in a number of quarterbacks. You didn't have to trade for a quarterback. You could have brought in, Cam Newton's available, Jameis Winston's available, Andy Dalton was available. They could have gone a lot of different directions, but they used a 4th-round pick on a quarterback when you probably didn't need to, because you could have had anybody come in and just be the backup. But I think they had a very specific reason in mind, so it's not going to surprise me if Foles is the starter in Week 1. Plus, he's wearing number 9 like Jim McMahon, so just make it happen already.
Yeah, I say Week 1. That sounds right. It'll probably be Week 3, just how the Bears run things. No offense.
Well, you could see a situation where, let's say he starts Week 1. And if they lost in Detroit, and the Bears haven't won a road opener to start the season since, I believe, 2008. Nagy is 0-2 in openers. Of course, both those games were against the Packers. But it's such a tough situation, because if he goes out and loses Week 1 and you want to give him another chance and he scuffles to a win in Week 2, and then in Week 3, they're on the road in Atlanta, which is a losable game because the Falcons should be better this season, then what are you doing? Are you willing to risk starting 1 and 2 and then switching to Nick Foles on what would be a short? No, they'd have the Colts, then the Buccaneers, but then I don't know. It'll be interesting. I do believe that they're trying to sell it as a competition, but everything that they've done, they said that they said at the end of last season that Mitch Trubisky was their quarterback. Then they traded for one. And now they're trying to tell us it's an open competition. I can't believe them. I can't believe that they're factual, so I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, this game is titillating, really.
Well, it's a barn burner. I mean, that's really where the dictionary definition comes from for barn burner. I mean, it's 14-0. We're here in the third quarter, but not every game can be Chiefs-Rams from a couple years ago. This certainly cannot be.
Very true. Adam Rank, what happens to Julian Edelman under an uncertain quarterback situation?
Well, depending on how this team, they're probably going to be pretty competitive. I still believe that they're a good team. They're a good defensive team. And we saw at the end of 2018, when they won the Super Bowl, they started running the ball an awful lot. And I believe that they're going to probably try to get back to that. James Devlin retired, but they traded for a fullback from the Packers. His name escapes me. But I really do believe that they're going to invest in the running game, and we're going to probably see a bounce back from Sony Michel. I think that they also kept one of their linemen, too, who was supposed to hit the free agent market. So they've done some moves, Joe Thuney, thank you. So they've made a lot of moves that made me believe that they're really focused in on the running game, and that's what it's going to be. So Edelman's probably not going to get 100 receptions, but at the same time, his value fantasy-wise is going to be so good because nobody's going to want to draft him. He's probably going to end up being the most targeted guy in that offense. It's probably not going to be the volume that he had with Tom Brady, but he's still going to be the most targeted guy in an offense. So he should be somebody that you pick up later on. And I think that, if people let him slide too far in the drafts, eventually you should fire in as, your fifth receiver or somebody like that.
I like that you have a healthy Mohamed Sanu this time around, who I think can really work with them. N'Keal Harry in year 2. If you look at their lineup, and you just forget about the quarterback situation for a bit. The lineup is not bad, and the one thing about Bill Belichick, and I think a lot of teams are going to be run heavy out of the gate if there's no training camp or if that's pulled apart in some way. You're going to get a lot of teams trusting the run game. It's why you like in Kansas City the rookie's going to play right away because there's going to be a lot of carries. But Bill Belichick has no problem in certain games taking a running back you've never heard of and giving him 24 carries. He won't play again for 5 weeks, but he'll do it again. And Belichick is going to use his parts, and I have no problem with the idea of the Patriots. I think in this simulation, they are coming out of the gate as a gigantic hot mess. I think in real life, you're going to see something a little different.
Definitely. Do we think the Jets will go 0-16 because of how brutal their schedule is?
I don't believe they're going to be very.
They're going to protect you as best they can. Hit it up, Adam.
No, but it's one of those things that the schedule is very tough. I have questions about Adam Gase. I know surprisingly they won 7 games last year, and to me though, this is kind of Gase's formula. He won 10 games in his first season with the Miami Dolphins. He has not won more than 7 games in a year since that time. So I question the coaching. We would have to see something miraculous from him, from his standpoint. I believe that there's some good pieces there. Like, I really like what they did in the draft. I thought that they addressed their needs. They went lineman. They had a chance to take one of the top flight wide receivers, but they did the right thing. They got a lineman. And so I think that a lot of their moves were good football moves. But again, until I can see some evidence that Gase is going to get them to that next level, I'm going to assume that it's going to be a struggle for them.
They got to 7-9 with an incredibly rough start. I mean, everything we all know that mononucleosis hit Sam Darnold. The backup quarterbacks were ultra hideous, and you got the wrong version of Le'Veon Bell. Joe Douglas is I think a really good GM in the making here. And he addressed the line. Now, were they all-star pieces? We don't know. But the guy they drafted is like bigger than 2 front doors put together. So I like that concept there. They needed that. And the Jets, by the way, to go 0-16, requires a lot of luck. And the Jets don't have luck.
Yeah.
So it's, for anything, I could see them being 7-9 again. But, this I don't worry about the strength of schedule business. I think most of us don't. Here in the early days of spring. A lot is going to change between now and then. And I think you're going to get Sam Darnold's best season.
Yeah, like you said, they're not lucky. So to lose 16 in a row like that, it's not going to happen. Another question, is Kamara worth taking over Dalvin Cook? Maybe fantasy-wise? Kamara has had I don't have his stats in front of me right now, but this game, pretty quiet.
Yeah, he's coming into a contract. He's coming into a contract year. The thing with Dalvin Cook is we really liked him coming out of Florida State, but he fell to the second round because of his injuries. He's been injured for most of his career, and if you look at his first and second half splits last year, he dropped off mightily in the second half, and that scares me off. I know that the Vikings are probably going to want to run the ball. That's, you got rid of Stephon Diggs. Justin Simmons could probably come in there and be a pretty good option for them, but they're going to want to run the football. But I don't know. I have a hard time trusting him because it was so bad towards the end of the season last year. So I'm going to pass on him. Usually, if you're in that range, you're at the second half of the first round. That's where I start to look at wide receiver. And one of the players that I'm looking at a lot, especially if you're at the end of the first round, I love Chris Godwin this year, but I'm really starting to get into Davante Adams. And I think that with them not addressing the wide receiver position in the draft leads me to believe that Davante Adams is going to have another special year. And that might be where I would be leaning if you were in a spot to pick one of those two guys.
That's complete to Robinson.
Oh, look at that dive.
Left in this
Robinson.
game.
Yeah, we just passed the 2-minute warning. How many seasons will Stefanski last in Cleveland? Mark, let's start with you.
Well, with every Cleveland coach, it's not always about what they do, but it's the environment around them. And I will say this, I am pretty hype-proof right now as a Browns, growing up as a Browns fan and currently a Browns fan. But I think what I'm hearing from every player that reports in on Stefanski and everyone all the other coaches too, that the one trait that he's brought is hyper organization, which was desperately missing last year. And we've talked about on our pod, Freddie Kitchens, man, it seems like he would be fun to go do like a beer crawl with in multiple towns, and I'd do it in 2 minutes. But when it comes to like how they organize for games and everything else, that was a huge problem. They were so underwhelming after the first drive or two in most games last season, and they built leads. You look at that Seahawks game, there's no excuse to have lost the game way they did against Seattle the way they did. And I think Stefanski was the favorite of the front office for a reason. It wasn't just a random, hey, we like this guy as the next young thing. I think that also let's look at the fact that the Browns ownership is paying right now roughly 650 coaches off of the last 7 or 8 that came and went in their coaching staff. So you got to keep them and you got to give them a chance to build. And their roster is ready to compete. You look at this Madden simulation, the Browns are right up there at the top of the AFC, and I think that is a crystal ball and operating correctly at the moment.
Touchdown!
Tony Miller.
Downtown. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So we also, Jason Zumwalt just commented, killer trio, guys. Can't believe I'm entertained by watching this, but here we are. Hey, you're welcome, Jason.
We love
you're
Zumwalt.
welcome.
Is that a like, that's a weird like compliment? Like, hey, I didn't think you guys would be good, but you've won me over, so I guess maybe it is.
Exactly.
I mean, Zumwalt is a
great.
man of many talents and many interests, and I would imagine that watching, and a lot of them are sort of, you look at it and say, Zumwalt's a smart guy. I don't know if the first thing he's always thinking about doing is watching video games on TV, but I think he's learning that this can be good for the soul too.
Definitely.
Yeah. Frank, did you have thoughts on Stefanski in Cleveland, or not really? Meh.
Oh no, I'm a huge fan of that move. I thought that was a great hire for all the reasons that Mark talked about. I also really do believe that they did the right thing during the offseason, because last year, as much fun as it is to get an Odell Beckham Jr. on your team, when you trade a Zeitler, you leave a Zeitler-sized hole in the offensive line, and I think that was a pretty big issue for them. And then they go out and they signed Conklin. They drafted. Did they get Mekhi Becton? I know they drafted an offensive lineman.
Jedrick Wills.
That's right, Jedrick Wills. Yeah, again, another great offensive lineman. You bring in Austin Hooper so they can run a lot of that 2 tight end sets with him and David Njoku. And now you got a lot of studs around. And last year they played so well when they had both running backs. I know it's frustrating to fantasy enthusiasts because you won't be able to draft Nick Chubb this year, but it just makes their team better. And I think that people were overboard in criticizing Baker Mayfield, and now that he's going to have a solid offensive coach directing him, I think he's going to have a bounce-back season. I think this Browns team is going to be very competitive, and they should be and will be, as long as they're healthy, they will be in the playoff race.
Yeah, I think there's a really good chance. I mean, like you said, on paper, they're just so great. And, Stefanski did awesome stuff with Minnesota, so let's hope that it all comes together and, just like the three of us, creates like a perfect, cohesive stream.
That's what you're hoping
that's
for.
Exactly
it's that
what
on-air chemistry. And,
Exactly.
we're here in the remote setting, so sometimes we talk over each other, but that's life, and we just press on. And the next game we broadcast here is going to be a little bit more of an entertaining affair than this semi snoozer. Or am I not seeing what was exciting about this game?
Boring people get bored or something. That's like a quote. So, I mean,
Well,
I've been
so
perfectly entertained.
That's fine. You can
That's
try to take
a quote
shot at
from
me,
Harvey Danger.
Oh yeah.
Well, Harvey Danger, I can tell Harvey Danger can do what he wants with that. But we made this fun because we're not boring. I hope that's what you're trying to say to me, Erica. I don't think that was the tone, though.
No, it was. Unfortunately, and fortunately, hopefully our next game won't include the Bears, and we'll have something a little bit more interesting to talk about. I mean, I just, come on.
All right.
Been there, done that.
Hey, they put up 7 points. Good for them. That's great. This is
an offensive juggernaut.
This is crazy. Let's see, what other questions do we got? Do we think OBJ will be the best in fantasy this year if he's targeted enough? We kind of just touched on that.
Because there's too much going on that team. I think it's like it's not going to be reliant just on him. I think it's probably a bad sign if that were the case. But I think his numbers and who he is as a week-to-week contributor, he was playing injured all last year. Don't you think, Adam, he'll have a better line than last year in terms of what he produces?
Yeah. 100%. And there were a lot of times, too. We broke this down on Fantasy Live one time. It was on one of the touchdown runs. And Odell Beckham Jr. was out there leading the charge. He's a great blocker. And the only reason I brought that up was because I know a lot of people question his commitment and things like that, which is all just ridiculous. Because this guy, for all intents and purposes, like the teammates seem to love him. He goes out there, he puts in a great effort. And this is going to be the season, I think, that now once you've established some stability there, which is what Mark talked about a moment ago, that it'll help out all those guys. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. is probably not going to go out there and be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver, but as your wide receiver, too, I think he's going to give you some pretty good production just based on his talent alone and the offense just being better.
Definitely.
Or Mitch.
And it looks like, yeah, this week 9 upcoming schedule, week 9 looks a little bit more interesting, and we should have some really great stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. What a great game. It was not exactly the way we all expected it to go. But you can find Marc Sessler and I, Ricky Hollywood, on the Around the NFL podcast, which is 2 times a week, or on Fridays on NFL Network. And Adam Rank is the host of the Adam Rank football fantasy podcast. Where can we find you?
The Adam Rank podcast, but you can find me on Twitter at Adam Rank or Instagram at Adam Rank NFL. And I have a YouTube channel, Adam Rank NFL, as well.
By the way, about 500,000 people have found Adam Rank on Twitter. So I don't, that you have found a way to market yourself very well on that platform.
How about you, Mark? Anything you want to shout out?
Well, I'm seeing right here, if you're looking at the screen, that Cleveland just knocked off the Raiders 28-25, and they're a 6-2. Just a giant boulder with spikes rolling downhill and about to take out the next town they roll into. So maybe we can pick one of their games coming up.
Yeah, and the Patriots knocked off the Bills that everyone was so confident was going to win the AFC East. So, put your money where your mouth is, people. I don't know what that means, but take it as you will. You guys, we'll be back with more Twitch soon. Follow up on Twitter for more info. We'd love to do this again. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you soon.